Hi there, this is Renessa Boley-Lane, and welcome to another conversation on creating your perfect work. If you know me, you know that I am all about equipping you to discover, design, and get highly paid to do work you love, whether that means radically changing careers, stepping up to start your business, or bringing a big idea to life. Today, I am so honored to share the platform with an amazing guest. Dr. Lois Frankel is a New York Times bestselling author of the book, Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office, Unconscious Mistakes Women Make That Sabotage Their Careers. In fact, she has a whole series of Nice Girls books, including Nice Girls Don't Get Rich, Nice Girls Just Don't Get It, and a new Nice Girl book that is soon to be released on how to make sure you get your voice heard, that your point is known, and that your presence is felt. Dr. Lois is an internationally recognized expert in leadership development for women, and most importantly, she has an incredible heart for philanthropy and giving back. So welcome, Lois. We are delighted to have you here.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be with you.
We're going to have a good time. So I have given you kind of the formal bio, but I'm going to tell y'all now what I personally think. So, what I love about Dr. Lois and why I specifically wanted to share her message with you is that she epitomizes how we need to show up in the marketplace as women to get more of what we want. And when it comes to getting highly paid to do work you love, you may have to show up differently than what you're accustomed to. And what it took to achieve, the level of success that you have now, gosh, it may not cut it if you're trying to make a pivot into a new career where you don't have an established track record. It definitely might look differently if you're trying to step into entrepreneurship, because that's a whole new ball game, or if you're trying to bring this big idea or this mission to life. And so get your pen and paper handy, because Dr. Lois is going to bring just a wealth of wisdom from decades of experience and decades of success, from what we say and don't say, or what we do and don't do, to really elevate ourselves. And so we're going to focus on key mindsets, on strategies, and the posture. Really, I think that's key, that we need to assume to get highly paid doing work we love. And so I'm excited to learn. I got my pen, my paper, my notes. So if my head is down, it's because I am scribbling. But the obvious first question, I think, Lois, for you is, why do you do what you do? Like, what prompted you to dedicate so much of your work equipping women to raise up in their work?
Yeah, it was interesting because when I was much younger, when I was in my 20s, I was really committed to women's issues. And, I was on the forefront of trying to get the Equal Rights Act passed and all of those things.
Yeah.
And I worked as a residence hall director, so obviously I was in a women's dorm, and I was at a women's school, and so I was just always committed to these issues. Yep. Because when I was doing my undergraduate work, I met I had a teacher that, and if I'm hesitating, it's because I've never been asked that question before.
Really?
That's a big question. So it's like I'm putting it all together as I'm speaking out, as I'm thinking out loud a little bit. But her name was Patty Peterson, and she was a women's studies teacher. There was another woman by the name of Barb Gerber.
Okay.
And both of those were women's studies teachers. And they really framed my thinking around what society does with women. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I kind of went in that direction. But then when I was in my mid-20s, I realized, quite frankly, there's no money in women.
Oh.
Right? I mean, if I could just be honest about it, there's no money in women. The fact is that women often don't have jobs where they can pay for the services they want and need. Because, and that's one reason why I wrote the book, Nice Girls Don't Get Rich, is because women often don't focus on acquiring wealth. Mm-hmm. And so one summer, I went to work to write job descriptions at a company called Arco. Right. And I had been on college campuses up until that point. And when I went to Arco to write the job descriptions for the summer, because I was always a pretty good writer and I was just looking for something to do for the summer.
Yeah.
I earned more than I did in the whole year on a college campus.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? I like this money thing. And I had just gotten my master's in counseling. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, human resources, what a great place to use it. so that really started my transition of 40 years in human resources, because I started in human resources at ARCO. I quit my campus job, started in human resources at ARCO, and then stayed there for 10 years until I started my own practice.
Okay.
So I kind of, I pivoted out for a while because again, there was no money in women. And then when I wrote Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office, I wrote it because I realized, for the same reason I said, companies don't often invest in women.
Yeah.
I was an executive coach, and the people that were being sent to me for coaching were predominantly men. So I had a practice that was probably 80% men and 20% women, right? And for that reason is that they just weren't investing that kind of money in women.
Yeah.
And so one day after I finished coaching a particular woman, I thought to myself, you know what? Every woman should hear what I'm telling this woman.
Yeah.
So what I did was I wrote a book about all the coaching tips that I give to women in business, and that became Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. And with that, all of a sudden, I was a woman's coach.
Yes.
Right? And I said, well, wait, you know, I'm not a woman's coach. I coach both men, I coach women. And a friend of mine said to me, Lois, go with the flow.
Yeah.
And so I did, and it came full circle. So Renessa, that was all my way of saying it came full circle. The things that I most loved to do, which was write, work with women, I put it on hold for a while I built my nest egg, I built my reputation. I got great experience that I could apply to women's issues. And then I came back to it.
Oh, that's awesome. It does always have a way of coming full circle, you know.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that everything comes at a price, right? So whatever it is that we want, there's a price that we've got to pay for it, and we get to decide, am I willing to pay that price or am I not, right? And sometimes we're, you know, pursuing what we want, but we're paying the wrong price for it. And so I'm really curious for you, because I like to bring humanity to the conversations as well, because folks can, you know, listen in and they think, wow, you know, Dr. Lois has made it and she's this and that, and the things that she's saying, you know, I can't possibly apply to me because she hasn't been where I've been. But I remember in the last conversation, the very first conversation we had, you talked about, you know, when it came time to build your practice and your business, like, you had to show up very, very differently to do that than you did when you were an employee. And so I'm really curious for you, what did you have to give up to get where you are today? And, you know, it could be something as tangible as, you know, selling my car to start my business, or it could be as intangible as releasing some kind of, you know, limiting belief or adjusting the belief system in order to be able to, you know, to get what you want. But for you, you know, what did you have to give up to get where you are today? Or maybe release. Maybe it's not give up. It's a release.
No, it's a great question. And I'm thinking about all of the things I gave up. And I'm just thinking of, you know, which ones I care to share. And I think what I had to give up was this person that I was in other people's eyes.
Okay.
You know, I'm the middle daughter, and I have two brothers, and both were very successful. And nobody expected much of me. And so I didn't expect much of myself. It wasn't that I wasn't always trying it, you know, because obviously I went on, I got my master's and I got my PhD, but my family didn't encourage me to do that. I think, you know, it's interesting. I had dinner with a cousin not too long ago, and he's about 10 years older than me. He said, you know, Lois, we never really thought you'd amount to anything.
And so tell me what you really think.
Yeah, right. Good thing I love this cousin. And so I think I had to give up that belief that, you know, or that myth about myself, because that myth permeated everything. It permeated the relationships that I chose, the things that I thought I could do and couldn't do. You know, it kind of created a block. And once I gave that up, once I said, you know, none of that is true. Is that if I look at my past, and I always tell people I didn't reach my stride until probably my late 30s. And by then, you know, I'd been in and out of relationships and never quite getting what was going wrong here. And what was really going wrong was that I wasn't stepping into my own, I'm going to use the word power. I kind of hate that word because it's overused, but I wasn't stepping into my own sense of self and what I could do. And so I had to give that up, and I had to say, yes, you are different, Lois. Yes, you are very capable, and you are more capable than many.
Mhm.
And so once I could say that to myself and have that kind of self-talk, of course things shifted, because they
Yeah.
always do, because we are our intentions.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's beautiful. You know, it's funny because I, I wrote, I read your book, and there were so many nuggets. I was trying to decide, what am I going to ask? And I literally have like 3 pages of just points and questions. So we're not going to get through all of them, but I hope to get through the most salient points, because I think that women are going to be so enriched by this conversation. But one of the things that you shared, and one of the mistakes that you talk about that women make in the pursuit of their success, whether it's career or business, is this idea that women have to work hard. And you said that sometimes women work harder because it's actually easier to do that than to do some of the other strategies that are required to get ahead in their career or business.
Mm-hmm.
And this idea will come as a shock. It was a shock to me, but I was nodding my head like, yeah, she's right. So it's probably going to be a shock to some of the other women that are listening. But tell me what you mean about that.
Yeah, in every organization, there's a baseline for hard work. You have to work up to the baseline, or you get called out, right?
Right.
You wouldn't have your job. But what happens for women is, for a number of reasons. One, as you said, because we don't always want to engage in the other behaviors, which I'll discuss.
Mm-hmm.
But more often, it's because we have that old message about, I have to work twice as hard to be considered half as good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that gets in our way. And then there's a third thing that gets in our way, and it's perfectionism.
Mm.
It's this feeling that, I have to be absolutely perfect, because sometimes we are the only woman in a room, right? And when you're the only one, you feel like all eyes are on you. So you have all of these things swirling around in your head. And as a result, you wind up working harder than you should, because if you look around, when I say there's a baseline for hard work, that baseline is different everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You go to some of the most prestigious firms, the baseline is very high.
Mm-hmm.
So and you go to some other firms and it's very low, right? And I won't name any of those companies, but every time you go over the baseline, you're seen as someone who's going to really get things done. That's not who gets promoted all the time, the person who gets things done. Mm-hmm. The person who gets promoted is the one who exhibits a wide array of skills, including strategic thinking, being able to have difficult conversations, being able to stand up for herself, being able to communicate with impact.
Yeah.
And so as women, we need to develop this other skill set that we can draw on. But instead, we've over-relied on the hard work. Mm-hmm. And, as I say in my books, as Mother Teresa knows, that sainthood comes from doing hard work, right? It's miracle workers get canonized.
Yeah.
They don't get recognized.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And it's interesting, even from a business perspective, that idea of working hard, because a lot of us will do the tedious stuff. We're working on a website, we're posting on social media, we're doing all this crap 12 hours a day. But what we need to be doing is building our thought leadership, or getting out and getting visible, sharing our ideas, connecting with the right folks who can open a door. And those things can be daunting. And mastering those skills can feel a lot harder. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't even say they're harder, and oftentimes they're easier to do, but they're much harder to implement from a fear-based, perspective. And so it is critical to learn what are the strategies truly that are going to get us ahead, and being willing to step up and do what it takes to master those. So this next one I've actually been guilty of in the past, and that's failing to capitalize on social situations. So tell us a bit about the difference between how men and how nice girls maximize social situations.
Yeah, we're hearing a lot these days this term quid pro quo.
Yep. Right? Yeah.
And I've been talking about this for years. So it's not because of what's happening in the news, but I've been saying for years that inherent to every relationship, there's a quid pro quo.
Yeah.
Right? And quid pro quo simply stands for one thing in exchange for something else. Mm-hmm. And it's in every relationship. It's in marriages. It's with parents and children. It's with friends. It's with employers and employees. Mm-hmm. So what happens for men is they understand the quid pro quo. They understand, I do you a favor, you're going to do me a favor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Women don't quite get that because it feels a little smarmy to them.
Yeah.
Because it makes them feel as if the relationship is less than genuine.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to capitalize on relationships. And I'll just give a quick example. There was a woman who was the daughter of a very famous psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
And if I said the psychologist's name, you'd know who it was. And the daughter had written a book.
Mm-hmm.
And she came to me and she said, I'm having a hard time getting this published. And I said, did you go to your father's publisher? And she said, oh, I don't want to capitalize on his good name. And there was a perfect example of someone who didn't get it, that she could get their attention with her book. It didn't mean they were going to buy it, but at least it would get her foot in the door.
Exactly.
And that's the kind of thing that women don't do often enough.
Yeah.
We often don't think strategically about relationships and how we can make those relationships work for us. We are so busy giving in relationships that we don't really cash in all the chips that we get from the giving.
Yeah. And I honestly, literally, when I read the point, it is the point across the course of both in my career and my business, that has been the biggest and most monumental area of growth for me. Because I'm a believer you can do things an easy way, a hard way, and set yourself up to fail way. And there have been times where I'd set myself up to fail, or at a minimum, it was really, really hard. And a lot of times I wasn't willing to maximize those opportunities. I would meet people and I'd connect with them, and I'm a great rapport builder. I can talk about all kinds of random stuff and make people feel comfortable. But then in my mind, I'm like, well, I'll follow up with whatever my ask is, but the opportunity's gone, And so just kind of putting this into a kind of application for people who are listening, as you think about creating work that you love, you're going to have to step out oftentimes and ask people for connections and things like that. And knowing beforehand what you want or need from people, so that even in a social situation you can ask for it, is critical. Like, do you need a connection? Do you need a referral? Do you need buy-in on an idea? Do you want to gain some visibility or on a win that you've had? Like, again, I tend to wait thinking, oh, well, I'll follow up. This isn't the appropriate time to have that conversation. But really, that's the opportune time. And 9 times out of 10, people are willing to give and they're willing to open up. But then now I have to compete with their calendar and the rest of their attention when I let those opportunities slip by.
But you're absolutely right, Renessa, and that's where understanding quid pro quo comes in. And I'll give you another example. There was a woman who I met many, many years ago, and she's a television producer. She's a news producer. And she had me on her show a couple of times, and I really liked her, and kind of built a relationship with her, and we exchanged Christmas cards and things like that. And when one of my books came out, I hesitated to contact her because I'm a recovering nice girl. That's what I always say. I don't have it all down yet. I have to tell myself these things.
Yeah.
I hesitated to contact her. She saw me on all these other shows, and she said, why didn't you contact me?
Wow.
And I said, because I didn't want to really make you feel as if I only built the relationship to use you. She said, first of all, I've never felt that way. Second of all, I need content too.
Yeah.
So it's about, and that really caused me to really look at, I do have something to offer. I have something valuable to offer.
Yeah.
So I can ask and I can offer.
Yeah, this was powerful. I'm harping on it because you hit home. But you talk about the fact that many women wait to get what they want instead of asking for it or figuring it out. So for some folks listening in on the call, creating their perfect work means radically shifting from their current situation, right? And so for others, they may like their company, the people that they work with or whatnot, and they want to stay. They simply want to grow or develop in a different way. So how would you advise those women, specifically if it's just an internal pivot that they're looking to make or, whatever, how would you advise those women to speak up for what they really want, whether it's to managers or mentors or the boss of a boss who might be able to create an opportunity for them to grow or pivot? Like, how do they begin to have those conversations?
Okay, I think that there'd probably be 3 steps to this.
Yeah.
The first one would be to identify and be crystal clear about exactly what you want.
Okay.
Because too often women will say, I really want to grow in my role. Well,
Yeah.
don't make me figure out what you
Okay.
want. Tell me what you want. Okay. This is a thing this is one of the problems guys have with us, is that we can be very, what we ask for is sometimes very unclear.
Yeah.
Sometimes because we're unclear,
Yeah.
other times because we're afraid to ask. So the first step has to be crystal clear about what you want, because it's like the old line from Alice in Wonderland. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there, right? So once you have that, then the second part is to put a plan in place and say, okay, so who are the people that I know that can help me to get there? What are the pathways to get there? If I were to draw a network chart with, and this is in Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office, having a network chart with you in the middle, and then kind of like a bicycle wheel, and spokes come out, and all the people on the periphery are the people who are in your network. So you start thinking about who's in my network that could help me to get there. So that's the second part. And then the third part is really developing your pitch, right? It's not about, I think I'm ready to be a manager, right? I think I'm ready to assume management responsibility.
Yep.
You know what? Everybody thinks they're ready to assume management responsibility.
Yeah.
Tell me what you've done that will enable me to picture you in that role. So it's about, okay, I'd like to talk to you about the fact that the manager position that's coming up in this department, I'm ideally qualified for. I say that for 3 reasons. Number one, I've supervised small groups of people on projects before, and I've gotten really good feedback about it. Number two, I have expertise in this area. I've been in the company now for 5 years. I have the relationships in place that are necessary to be successful, and so forth. So you really have to see yourself as kind of creating a pitch for yourself. You are the brand.
Yeah.
Why should someone buy your brand? And that's what women have a hard time doing. I think it's those 3 things: being clear, identifying the avenues and the relationships that are going to get you there, and developing your pitch so that it can flow off the tip of your tongue. Or if you're in an elevator and you happen to be with the president of the company and he says, tell me about what you do. Being able to say it in a way that makes that president say, gee, she's really sharp. We should really be taking advantage of her.
Yeah, no, I think it's because what I hear is the need for us to elevate to the level of our ask, like elevate ourselves to the level of what it is that we want. So whether it's, hey, there's a role coming up and here's why I think I'm the perfect person for it, from a career perspective, but even in business, it's interesting because I have, clients, particularly those who do service-based work, maybe they're coaches or trainers or facilitators, or, they are the service, right? Or the product. And they'll come and they'll say, they're asking their clients what they're willing to pay for their service. Like, oh, I'm wondering how much, I've asked them how much they'll pay to do X, Y, and Z, or I'm asking them how much they'll pay for a coaching session or whatnot. And that's the wrong question to answer, because if you're asking the market how much they're going to pay, they're always going to pay you less than what you really want. But on the flip side, it's deciding how much do I want to charge? And then how much value do I need to provide in order to justify that price in the marketplace and be willing to raise up to that space so that then you actually get what you want, as opposed to settling for whatever somebody's willing to give you.
Vanessa, you're bringing up a couple of really good points. And one thing before I go to that about, asking for or knowing what you should be earning, I just want to go back to the relationships for a second, because there's a maxim: when you need a relationship, it's too late to build it.
The truth. Yeah.
And so if I see a management job, I'm just using it as an example. It could be anything. It could be a perk. It could be anything. Yeah. If I see something come available that I want, I have to have the relationships in place already to increase the likelihood that people are going to listen to me, because we give things to people that we know and like.
Yeah.
right? And it kind of goes along, this also ties in with what you're saying, is that I often say there are a lot of people out there who are coaches who, I used to do training.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who did all that. So why did my clients keep coming back to me? And there are people who did it cheaper.
Yeah.
Because I built relationships with them. We're in a relationship economy. And if people don't know who you are, and more importantly, if you don't know who your clients are, you're going to have to be marketing all the time. What you really want is repeat business.
Yeah.
That's the easiest kind of business to get. There's a great book, and it just went out of my head, and it's about how to build relationships that are going to work for you. It's called The Trusted Advisor. Okay, The Trusted Advisor, and the author is David Maister, Maister. And I really learned a lot from that book, because what David Maister says is that we can be subject matter experts, but without the relationship, we're not trusted advisors.
Yeah.
We're just subject matter experts. And I saw that over the years, that as I came to know my clients better, both personally and professionally, and my expertise grew, particularly with regard to knowing their culture.
Yeah.
The referrals to me increased as well.
Yeah.
Going back to what you were saying about asking for what you should be getting, you have to do market research. And I can tell you from experience, I was underpricing myself for a really long time. Because again, it went back to that old message. Well, if they're willing to pay this, why am I going to increase it? And right. But you do your market research and you say, it's not what I think I deserve. It's what does the market pay for this job? And that's what I should be getting. And the best piece of advice I ever got was from a man who had a big consulting firm. He's passed away now, but he had a big consulting firm. And he said to me, Lois, people don't pay you for your time. They pay you for your expertise.
Yeah.
They can't pay you enough for your time. Your expertise includes your degrees, your experience, your relationships, everything you've ever read related to your field. And once he said that, I realized, okay, my fee is my fee. If you want to pay me less, what do you want me to do less of? So that if someone says, and this happens to me all the time, if we have a coaching engagement, and let's just say the engagement is, let's just say it's $20,000, and someone says, I don't have $20,000 in my budget. Okay, great. The idea is not I lower my fee to get the client, because that's what a lot of people do, and that's a myth. Because they say, well, once I get this client, then it'll bring more business, right? And then no, that's very hard to do.
Yeah.
And there's never any guarantee. I get it all the time with my speaking engagements. We can't afford your speaking engagement, but you're going to be speaking to 1,000 women, all of whom bring in people to speak.
Yeah.
And I go, I've heard that before.
Yeah.
So the idea is to say, what would you like me to do less of? If you can't afford my fee, then tell me what your budget is, and I'll design something that might work for you. So, okay, you can't bring me to Kansas to speak at your conference. Would you like me to video something that you can show at the conference? That would cost a lot less. Would you like to do a webinar? Would you like to have me come in remotely from a remote location and talk to your group? That would cost less. So what you do is you provide choices for people. And can I say one more thing about that?
Yes.
Okay. Is that sometimes we need to do more of that with our time and our expertise in-house as well. Right?
Done.
Yeah, right?
We are done.
It is the exact same thing where somebody comes, you're working in-house and someone says, I need this by tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And you're already juggling all these balls. And as a woman, we tend to say, okay, and we roll up our sleeves and then we're there till midnight, right? And that's not okay. But we can do the exact same thing that I just said with your internal clients. And you can say something like, I'm happy to have it to you tomorrow by 9 o'clock. But let me tell you what that means is these 3 projects will be put on the side. And if that's okay with you, I can do that. Or another thing you might say is, I'm happy to have it to you by 9 o'clock. Now, that's not a lot of time to get you what you need and have it be flawless. You don't mind that it's probably going to have either some mistakes or not be robust. I'll get it to you. But you need to understand that's how it's going to work. Or if you want to assign some other people to work on it with me, we could probably have a better product. Or if you give me 24 more hours, you're going to have exactly what you want. So again, framing for people what's realistic and not turning yourself into a pretzel.
I think that right there is just worth your weight in gold. Like, we can just stop the recording right there. I just think that strategy, it applies to your customers, it applies to your colleagues internally, it applies to your spouse, you know, like understanding that everything there, we talked about it before, everything comes at a price. That price could be your time, that price could be your sleep, that price could be your sanity, that price could be your peace. It's not always about dollars and cents.
No.
And sometimes the intangibles actually cost more, you know, than the dollars and cents. And so having the courage to really advocate for yourself and set those boundaries and give people the choice of which outcome they want. So then now everybody's bought into how this thing is going to move forward. But in that, you have built in what your own limitations are, even if they're just self-imposed because you want, you know, to maintain your own sense of well-being.
or you want to live your values.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. If you constantly turn yourself into a pretzel, you can't be living your values.
No.
You know, and whatever they are, whether it's to spend time with family, whether it's to exercise, I don't care what it is. You know, it's interesting because when I'm speaking to groups of both men and women, I'll pick a man out of the audience and I'll say, I want you to tell me what you do when your boss asks you to make a miracle, to do something that is like, should be impossible. Men tell me one of three things. Number one, they go back and they negotiate. Number two, they laugh or they use humor to make the person see that's not really realistic. You know what the third thing they say? I delegate it to a woman because I know she'll get it done.
Wow.
We need to think about that.
Oh, yeah. Wow. So this next question, I love this one. I should say, ooh, and literally, Lois, it says, ooh, I love this question. That's what I wrote down. You talk about this idea of polling before you make a decision, right? And why it can be a double-edged sword for women. So please tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that.
Yeah. When you have a decision to make, of course you want to get input from other people, right? But if you can't make the decision without asking everyone what they think, it makes you look as if you can't make a tough decision. And who wants to have someone like that in a senior role? Or who wants to have someone like that as an advisor? And so it can't be that you can't make a decision without polling. My suggestion to women is you do it the other way around. Is that maybe there's a decision to be made about some kind of new system we want to incorporate in our company. Okay? And you're thinking, I'm not sure the best way to do this is. What you might say, you might do a little bit of research on your own. Then you might go to a meeting and say, hey, look, I've done some research on this. What the research suggests is that we have three options here to do X, Y, or Z. My suggestion, without getting all of your input right now, is to do X. At the same time, I'd like to get all of the best ideas on the table so that we can choose one and move forward confidently. That's different than just going around and saying, you know, what do you think we should do about this new system? What do you think we should do? Because what winds up happening is you get into a spitting match with people. That people say something, well, I think we should do this. And you're thinking to yourself, no, I don't think that's quite right. Now, how are you going to go back and you're going to say that? You asked what you thought we should do. But if you put out first what you think we should do and why, and then invite discussion, you've made your point.
No, I think that's great.
And again, it's about limiting the options. And saying, these are the three things I think we should do. It's a little bit like what you do with kids, right? You see the kids, do you want to go to bed at 7:30, 7:40, or 7:50? And all are acceptable to you. child chooses.
You going to bed.
Yeah, you go to bed. Yeah.
As a mother of a 21-month-old, that's the negotiation we're in right about now.
Yes. I imagine.
So it's an important point because there's a level of courage that's required to be willing to stand alone in your decisions and take full responsibility for whatever that happens to be, right? And for a lot of the women that are listening in, and men who may be listening in on this conversation, if you're at a place where you're thinking major transition in your work, whether that's the career or the business, or you've got this thought leadership or this idea that you're trying to bring to the market, you're going to be at a place where you have to decide how you're going to move forward. And yes, you want to get the feedback of the marketplace, like, are they going to buy this thing? Like, is it viable? Like the basics, right? Do I have something that people are going to want to pay money for? Or, you know, do I have the skills that are required to step into this, you know, to this new role or whatever? You want to get that baseline, but inevitably, just by the nature of the radical shift you're making, you will be at a place where not everybody's going to agree with how you choose to move forward or what you decide to do. And there has to be a level of confidence, even in the midst of the fear or you know, the uncertainty, because that's just part of the course, where you're willing to stand alone with that decision and say, hey, I've done the due diligence and this is the way we're going to go, and hook or crook, I'm okay with, you know, how we're going to move forward. And I think that's a big deal, especially if you're trying to get highly paid for it, no doubt.
Yeah, you know, and one of the models that people can use for this, because, you know, I was one of those people that did not do the due diligence. It was like, I just trusted my gut all the time. And so I wound up doing it the hard way a lot of times. Yeah. But there is a model that could help women to avoid those same mistakes I make. And it's called facts and feelings.
Okay.
And if you have a tough decision to make, and you don't have many facts, and you don't feel any good, you don't feel very good about it, that's obviously not a good decision, right? If you have all the facts, but you don't feel good about it, that's probably not a good decision either, right? If you feel good about it and have no facts, you're probably going to make a mistake. So when you think about it, the more facts that you can bring in that will make your feelings match that I'm feeling good about this. I've done as much research as I can. Of course, I can't do all the research. Of course, anything could happen. The economy could tank. I mean, how many people started business and the economy tanked?
Yeah.
Right? Nobody could predict that. Right? Yeah, right? Nobody could predict that. And so it's not about how many times you fall down. It's the old saying. It's about how many times you get up.
Yeah.
And I've certainly had to do that. I've had friends point out to me, you know, Lois, I've never seen anybody reinvent themselves as often as you. And that's because when things start to go sideways, it's like, no, this is not about failure. This is about an opportunity to create something new that I would absolutely love.
Yeah, no. I was going to add a comment, but nope, you said it. Nothing else I need to add. I want to make sure we're mindful of time. And I think this is one of the last questions. Oh, actually, there's a couple, and we'll see how far we can get. But you talk about personal branding. And in the book, you use this quote by Peter Montoya that reads, "A personal brand is a promise of performance that creates expectation in its audience," which I really like the way that he captured that. So tell us why being able to articulate your personal brand in the marketplace is critical if someone wants to not only create work they love, but get highly paid doing it.
Because it is what differentiates you from everyone else, number one. Number two, it guides all of your actions, right? Again, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. But your brand guides your actions. And so that's another reason why. And a third reason why is it just gives you confidence, right? You're not stammering when somebody says, "What do you do?" You know, I'll never forget. A lot of times I have more, like, you know, I have more guts than I have smarts sometimes. And I'll never forget when I first started my business and I did some cold calling, and, you know, the people on the other end said, "So tell me about this." And I thought, oh, I didn't think that through thoroughly, right? And so, you know, creating your personal brand is really important. Again, whether you work for someone else or you have your own enterprise. Because again, people buy, you know, why do you buy a brand? You buy a brand because you like it, you trust it, It has, often it has cachet, usually because it has quality.
Yeah.
And you need to communicate all those things about your brand so that people will buy you internally or externally. It's really critical that you have this brand, and I am very clear that my brand is to help facilitate significant and enduring change in the people that I'm privileged to serve by providing compassionate, courageous, conscientious, and competent consultation.
Yeah.
That's my brand. If I'm not doing those things, then I'm not doing my job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I love the second piece of that, where the brand guides your actions. So I think so often we run after whatever opportunity comes our way that is different from where we happen to be. And every door that opens is not a door that's meant for us to walk through.
Exactly.
And if we understand our brand and how we want to show up in the marketplace and the value that we want to offer, then we are better equipped to be able to evaluate, is this the right move for me? Or is this an opportunity that I say no thank you to, as opposed to getting myself in a hot mess that then I need to extricate myself from, or that derails me from where I want to be.
Right.
I think just personally, for me, for many years, I was not clear on my brand. And I wasn't, and I had value and I had skills, and I could apply that skill to all kinds of things. When you coach or you speak, I mean, I could coach on weight loss, career, how to find a man, get happy. Like, I could coach on all kinds of things. Didn't mean that that's where I should be playing the game. And so for a long time, I was all over the place because I'm just chasing the opportunity without understanding really what value do you want to add? Where's your sweet spot? Where are you supposed to be? Because then you get to say no thank you as much as you say welcome to opportunities that come your way. I think that's really, really, really critical.
You're absolutely right. And what goes along with that is what I learned from Peter Montoya, which is it's counterintuitive, but the more narrowly you define your brand, the more business you're going to get. Because everyone wants a specialist, right? So, when I was doing training and I was doing coaching and I was doing, all these things, I had a good amount of business. But when I shifted I was an executive coach. I changed the name of my company to Corporate Coaching International. When I did that, I got even more business because everybody knew that was my specialty area, was coaching.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That makes total sense. So we are actually coming close to time. So my last question, I'm just going to have to hang on to. But actually, no, I'm going to ask it because we got a couple minutes. You talk about social networking and the importance of being a part of that. And as we look at social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, with Snapchat, like there's all Periscope, like there's so many that I don't even know them all. But it surprises me when I have conversations with folks that there are lots of people who just choose to be off the grid, and they have their reasons for wanting to do that and all of that. But you talk about there's a value in being in a social network, however much or little you choose to do, but especially if you're trying to create work you love, if you're trying to get visibility for who you want to be in the marketplace, career, or business. Explain to us how that can be a real asset, in the world of work.
Well, yeah, because again, it's the place where you market your brand. And that's why I tell people, particularly women, because women tend to do more social networking than men, believe it or not. But they tend to do it in more of a posting pictures way, right? And sharing stories and things like that. And I say, if you want to do those things, you need to have two separate accounts. You need to have your personal account that your family can come on and they can put whatever kind of crazy pictures of you as a baby or you at a party or, I don't care what it is. But that's not your professional brand. You want your brand to be something that when people see it, you are selling that. You are always selling yourself. And that's why it's so important that if you're not on social network, then you're not using the same opportunities everybody else is to market themselves. Because remember what I said, when you need a relationship, it's too late to build it.
Yes.
So that the social networking has provided us with a way that we can build a wide network of relationships that we never could before. Now, of course, you should be selective about it, and should be selective about what you share about yourself and so forth. And some people think that like I'm a little bit overly cautious about that, but I think for women, because we do get judged differently a lot of times, that we do want to be careful that we present the most professional image possible all the time. It's what Sylvia, Hewlett calls executive presence. Right? That we need to use the social media to market our executive presence so that people know what we're capable of.
Yeah, no, I think the point that you made, and you said it the first time, I wrote it down and underlined it and was going to have you say it again. So I'm glad you did. But when you need a relationship, it's too late to build it. And that is so true. And for a lot of us who are not great at relationship building, and relationship building isn't just about being extroverted and meeting people at an event and all that. It's about really cultivating that relationship. And I am not the best person to do that. Like, I'm learning how to really prioritize that. But it is too late when you need something, because when you need it, you needed it like yesterday, and now you're withdrawing from a well that you've not made deposit into. And so that's really challenging. But social networking is a great way of being able to connect with people about the things that are important to them, pouring into them, whether it's just a comment on something they've done or offering a resource in some way. It doesn't take a ton of time, but there are people that I have met on social media that I don't even know where I met them, how I met them, how we connected. We've been connected for years, and yet I could actually pick up the phone or shoot an email to them and ask them for something, and it would be an absolute yes, just because of a little pitching and catching on things across the years. And I have no qualms with doing that, even more so than someone I may have known from college that I hadn't invested in 25 years. And so there's some real gold mine in that, particularly as you're thinking about making shifts in your life, because to Lois's point, when you need that relationship, if you haven't cultivated it, it's really, really hard to withdraw from it.
Yeah, and I think it's important for women to understand that it's not always about standing around in high heels and drinking white wine.
Yeah.
That cultivating relationships is something we do every single day. It's when I go out of my way for someone, and I don't ask for anything in return, but often it comes back to you. And do I have time for one quick story?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, when I worked at ARCO, I used to do affirmative action plans. And I don't know if you've ever done an affirmative action plan, but it's like, they're horrible to do. They're horrible. But it was part of my job. I did affirmative action plans. And there was a woman in another department who always had a hard time with her plan. And every year she'd come to me and ask me if I would help her with it. And I hated doing my own, but every year I helped her with it because I just thought, yeah, that's just the right thing to do. I'm going to help her, right? I leave ARCO. I never expect to see this woman again. About a year into my practice, she calls me and she says, Lois, the training director for ARCO Indonesia is coming to the United States, and she's looking for people to go to Indonesia and do management training. Would you like to meet her? Now, that doing the affirmative action plan, I expected nothing from.
Yeah.
A year later, she introduces me to a woman who over the past 20 years has probably given me easily $150,000 in work. So easily. And then there was work that came off of that too. Yeah. So, but that's the example of, you don't know where you have to act and treat people with abundance, because you don't know what's going to come back to you. Yeah. And you don't do it because something's going to come back to you. You do it because it's the right thing to cultivate a relationship. Yeah. And sometimes it comes back to you, and it can be very lucrative.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, this has been a rich conversation across the board, and I so appreciate your time. And I know that everyone that's listening has got as many pages of notes as I have. But the generosity really doesn't stop with the interview. Dr. Lois has been gracious enough to extend to everyone on this call a free gift to be able to access her content and her thought leadership. And so I'm going to kind of pitch it over to you to be able to tell us more about that and how we can get access to it.
Yeah, my new book, Nice Girls Don't Speak Up or Stand Out, is coming out on January 7th, which I'm very excited about. And it's an audiobook because I read it, and I feel as if women have to hear this, not read this. Yeah. You have to hear, how do I speak up and stand out? And so what I'm doing is, for anybody who pre-orders the book, and the book is available for pre-order now on Amazon. Anybody who pre-orders the book, I will enter into a contest to win a free coaching session with me. And I'm going to give away 3 free coaching sessions. It's going to be done by random. So all you have to do is go buy the book and then tell me you bought it on my LinkedIn page, Dr. Lois Frankel. Go to LinkedIn and just tell me you bought it. Once you tell me you bought it, you're automatically entered into the contest. So I'd like to offer that. And also at my website, drloisfrankel.com, there are self-inventories you can take for free that will help you identify your areas for development.
Awesome. So there will be links to Dr. Lois's interview here. So literally all you have to do is close out the video, click the link, and get access to everything. And do that now, because oftentimes we get really great opportunities and we write it down, or we put a little post-it and we think we're going to come back to it, and then inevitably life happens and it doesn't. So if her content has resonated with you, which I know it has, because it really has been awesome, do that now. Get in the funnel now. And then you can go back and read stuff later. But we are so delighted and thankful that you shared your time with us, that you shared your wisdom. It was fun. It was engaging. And I, for one, the book was great. So the Quarter Office book was great. The Nice Girls, tell me again, Nice Girls Don't Speak Up.
Nice Girls Don't Speak Up or Stand Out.
Get it, get it, get it, get it. Yeah. So thank you again, Lois. I appreciate you being here. And to everyone that is listening in, we will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.